Welcome to the Irene W. Pennington Planetarium. Before we begin our featured presentation, we would like to introduce you to the constellations and objects in our autumn evening sky. To orient yourself here in the theater, south is in front of you, north is behind you, east is to the left, and west is to the right. These aren't the true cardinal directions. This is just the way that we have it set here in the planetarium today. With that in mind, let's begin with a sunset and begin our tour of the night sky. Once our daytime star, the sun, has set completely below the horizon and the glow of twilight fades, we can see the light from hundreds of stars and even a few planets if we know where to look. What you're seeing now is a country sky. This is the kind of sky you can expect if you can venture far out into the country, away from any street lights, car lights, and city lights. By moving out and away from the city, we can do away with this light pollution, so we can see even more stars, even the band of our own Milky Way galaxy. As our Earth travels around the sun, we are able to see different constellations during different seasons. Where we are in our orbit around the sun determines which constellations we see at night. Just like our day and night cycles are dependent on how our Earth rotates on an axis, our seasons are the result of how our Earth rotates on that axis in orbit around the sun, and all the while on a tilt. Earth's axis is an imaginary pole going right through the center of Earth from top to bottom. Earth spins around this pole, making one complete turn each day. That is why we have day and night, and why every part of Earth's surface gets some of each. Earth has seasons because its axis doesn't stand up straight, and this axis always points in the same direction. So, we're on a tilt as we spin and revolve around the sun. When summer comes around, we're tilting more towards the sun, and we in the northern hemisphere get more sunlight shining directly on us. However, when winter comes around, we're tilted away from the sun. In wintertime, the sun shines more directly on the southern hemisphere and more indirectly on us in the northern hemisphere. You can thank the tilt of the Earth for those nice seasonal changes. As we make our trip around the sun, this orbit we take will determine what seasonal constellations we see in our night sky. It is in autumn that we can find some of the most famous constellations and characters based on ancient Greek myths. These characters may sound familiar to you as they were part of the plot in the 1981 and 2010 films sharing the same name, Clash of the Titans. Yes, it's the story of Perseus and Andromeda. With every myth, there's always a bit of variation from time to time when it's retold. In fact, in the movie version of this story, some of the Greek character names were replaced with characters from Norse mythology. In the original tale, Perseus was the son of Zeus and was challenged to hunt down and kill the Gorgon Medusa, a fearsome creature that could turn living beings into stone just by looking at them. Perseus eventually found her in a cave somewhere in Africa and, using his gifts from the gods, was able to defeat her and claim her head as a prize. He was able to fly back home to Seriphos on the back of his winged horse Pegasus. On his travel back, Perseus encountered Atlas the Titan, who challenged him to combat. In their encounter, Perseus used the head of Medusa to turn Atlas into stone. Well, as he continued on his way back, Perseus came across a princess by the name of Andromeda. He found her chained to a rock as a sacrifice to the sea monster Cetus. As it turns out, Andromeda's parents were the rulers of Ethiopia, King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia. They had been bragging over their daughter's beauty so much that the gods decided to send Cetus the sea monster to attack their land and teach them a lesson. By offering their daughter Andromeda as a sacrifice, they hoped to quell the beast and save the entirety of their homeland. Perseus would have none of this. He used the head of Medusa to turn Cetus the sea monster into stone as it emerged from the deep. After this daring rescue, Perseus took Andromeda back to her parents and asked her father for his daughter's hand in marriage, which he agreed to. They would eventually marry and have a long life together. And now, these characters are immortalized in the sky even to this day. To locate them in your autumn evening sky, all you need to do is locate a bright collection of 4 stars forming a square. Take some time to look around for a bright square of stars. It's almost directly overhead. If these are the 4 stars you have found, then you have located the square of Pegasus. You can formulate the rest of the pattern representing the famed winged horse by using these stars to complete its head and legs. Of course, once you've found Pegasus, there must be Perseus nearby, right? Well, indeed, lower on the eastern horizon along the path of the Milky Way, you'll find Perseus the hero. And if you look closely, in his hand is a reddish, twinkling star. This is Algol, thought to be the blinking eye of Medusa. Below Perseus and to the south, you'll find a diamond shape of stars forming the head of Cetus the sea monster. And then, just like how Perseus rode off with the princess, you'll find Andromeda in between Perseus and Pegasus. Finally, just like in the story, King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia are nearby. King Cepheus is represented by an almost upside-down house shape of stars, while Queen Cassiopeia can be found as a prominent W shape of stars. Now that we are familiar with some of our autumn constellation friends, we can now see how the sky is divided into sections like a map. And we can use this map to go beyond our backyard sky and into deep space. In fact, this is why we still use constellations. The constellations divide the sky into sections, and astronomers can use these divisions to communicate what they have found and where they have found it. For example, it's easier to communicate to people that you are currently in a planetarium in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, rather than give someone a string of numbers in the form of a GPS location. But stars aren't the only things we can find in these areas. Occasionally, we'll get some visitors within this rigid map that don't stick around for very long. They'll come and go, they'll move from one area to another. These would be things like comets and planets. In fact, we had a comet known as C2020F3 Neowise that was visible by the Big Dipper a little while back. Of course, you'll see the planets as well. They'll appear as bright points of light, and they'll appear in different constellations as they all travel through the sky in their own orbits. In fact, this season you can find a number of planets in our night sky. There's Jupiter and Saturn as they appear by Sagittarius. There's Neptune as it appears in Aquarius. You'll find Mars within Pisces, and then finally you'll find Uranus over in Aries. You'll be able to find all the planets with your naked eye, with the exception of Uranus and Neptune. Those planets are quite far away and require the aid of a telescope to see. Also, for the studious observer, you'll occasionally be able to spot the International Space Station as it orbits our own planet Earth. In fact, this year in November will mark the 20th anniversary of the International Space Station. It was on October 31st in the year 2000 that veteran NASA astronaut William Shepard left Earth on a journey to the International Space Station with the distinction of becoming its first commander, beginning 2 decades of continuous human presence in low Earth orbit. At the time, the space station was a small orbiting complex of just 3 modules, not the sprawling research complex that today is as large as a 5-bedroom home with a gym, 2 bathrooms, and a 360-degree bay window looking at Earth below. The primary pieces of the space station were delivered on 42 assembly flights, 37 on the US Space Shuttle, and 5 on Russian rockets. Elements were constructed independent of one another around the globe and assembled for the first time in space. The space station took 11 years to fully construct. Its current configuration measures 357 feet end to end with a mass of nearly 1 million pounds. This was a collaborative effort by 15 nations to construct the space station in orbit, and so far 239 individuals from 19 countries have visited or enjoyed extended stays. Around 250 scientific investigations are conducted on the station at any given time, and it also serves as a test bed for innovative technologies like recycling waste plastic and carbon dioxide filtration that are critical for long-duration missions on the lunar surface in the Artemis program. The research conducted and lessons learned on the space station will serve as a launching pad for future lunar and Mars exploration under the banner of NASA's Artemis program and the continued international and commercial cooperation that will return benefits for all mankind. Of course, when it comes to the potential future of exploring other worlds, we need to find water. Why? Because on Earth, almost everywhere there is water, there is life. Whether the water is boiling hot or frozen, some sort of creature seems to thrive in it. When it comes to finding life beyond our own Earth, there are a few possibilities in our own solar system backyard. Of course, water on Mars exists today almost exclusively as ice with a small amount of atmospheric water vapor. There's also Enceladus, a moon of Saturn. The Cassini spacecraft has captured evidence of water geysers here. Not only that, but there is also data suggesting of a subsurface ocean. And then there's Ganymede, a moon of Jupiter. Like Europa, Ganymede is theorized to also contain a subsurface ocean suggested by patterns in auroral belts and the rocking of its magnetic field. But nothing quite compares to the water we have here on Earth. 71% of our planet is covered in water. Not only that, but our own bodies are made up of almost 60% water. So, will we ever discover a world beyond our solar system that is terrestrial, contains water, and resides within its star's habitable zone? Only time will tell. Until then, we'd like to encourage you to keep looking up to the constellations, stars, planets, and deep sky objects you can find in your seasonal night sky. Take some time to venture out into the night to gaze up at the stars with renewed interest and enthusiasm, and contemplate our unique place within the universe.